Yes, Root for Sports podcast. We're jumping around in the house. I'm going back to Miami for my good man, Matty Schilling, a.k.a. The Law, because he is a lawyer. And if I ever do get in any trouble, I know exactly who to call right away. I got my man on the line, friend since basically birth. How you doing, Matty Shills? How you feeling?
I'm feeling just fine. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm in good shape over here, man. I'm a pretty happy guy. I can't complain. Things are going well in life. New York, spring is coming, which means baseball is coming, which means that makes you very happy. I'm very happy. Although, I should say that we may not be so happy come maybe, early May, given the fact that we're both Met fans, and I don't know, it's been a problem so far. What's your outlook for the season?
Well, that is the question, outlook, because if you go into the season expecting that they're going to make the playoffs, then I think that you're going to be disappointed. Early May would be early for any team to be disappointed about their playoff chances, but they have to face facts, and the facts are that they play in a much improved, very difficult division with teams that have gotten better, at least on paper, and that they're going through a difficult, uncertain time with their ownership and a transitional time with the players on their roster. So it's a difficult time, but it's an interesting time because there are players who get a chance to earn jobs and possibly earn spots on the team in the future.
Yeah, I guess that may be the only good thing about it is that we get to see these young kids play like a Justin Turner who came up last year and, shocked everybody, was playing great for a while. Of course, sometimes you come back down to reality, but as Met fans, that seems like it's really all we have to look forward to is, our young players and who may be possibly the next David Wright, which is somebody I hope that we hold on to, even though he's got this, Arizona Valley fever sort of thing, which I never heard of in my entire life. But it's just typical that already, even before spring training starts, that our best player has some sort of, weird disease that I never heard of in my life. It's just typical New York Mets stuff, isn't it?
Well, they have no luck whatsoever when it comes to the injuries, when it comes to the diagnosis of the injuries, when it comes to the treatment of the injuries. It's no secret that they've had a tough few years. I understand that David Wright's going to get examined up in New York tomorrow by the team doctor because he hasn't played yet during the spring because of a oblique issue. So that's obviously not a good way for us to start in that regard. But there are certain things to definitely be hopeful for. If you watched any of the Met games last year at the beginning of the year, and I watch every inning of them.
Yes, you do. There's no doubt.
Ike Davis was going to be an all-star. He was having an all-star caliber season, and he's a player that's under financial control by the team for a very long time at a very reasonable cost. I know I sound like Sandy Alderson probably, but...
Hey, no, that's all right. I appreciate that perspective on the show because sometimes we just get ranting and raving, but I like where you're going with this, so please continue.
Guys like Daniel Murphy, Ruben Tejada, they are going to get a chance to play, as we mentioned before, and they're guys that the Mets have developed through their system. They're guys that were brought in by the previous regime, but they're guys that are held over nonetheless, and they've shown the ability to do things at the major league level, and you never know what can happen, as cliche as it sounds. So
no, it's true. You never do know. I mean, look, who thought the Arizona Diamondbacks were going to win their division last year, and the Cardinals winning the World Series with basically a mediocre 500 average for the most part. So yeah, things do happen out of nowhere, and usually it comes down to pitching a lot. And one of our big guys, or our biggest guy, seems like he may be ready to go for opening day. I'm surprised by this, given the timeline they set out for Johan Santana, but I don't know. You think we'll get a full year out of him?
I don't think that he's going to pitch or start 35 games. I think that would be a lot to ask, but if we can get 25 starts, let's say, out of Santana, that bodes very well for a couple of reasons. Number one, he obviously is still one of the elite pitchers in the league. Even without his best stuff, he's able to navigate his way through a lot of National League lineups and match up against any ace that he's going to go up against, and he makes the other pitchers on the staff better. And then the other thing is that if he pitches well enough and shows that he's healthy, he could be a guy that the Mets could possibly look to trade midway through the season or at the trading deadline if they're out of it, to a team that'd be looking to add a pitcher at the trading deadline. And if they're able to do that, they'd obviously be able to stockpile some more young prospects and get rid of a large salary, not just this year, but I believe in the next 2 years going forward, which would then allow them the flexibility to go out and do more things once this Madoff trial and all that stuff gets resolved, and the situation becomes clear.
Yeah, usually when you bring up the word trade in New York Mets in years past, it's as us being go-getters and not trading away pieces like we did with Carlos Beltran last year, and maybe it's something we should have considered a little bit harder with Jose Reyes, because speaking of bringing guys up in our system, him and Wright came up together and we kind of thought, hey, you know what, maybe these guys are going to be around for a while and a few World Series or whatever, but Reyes went and took his talents to South Beach, which seems like everybody else is going there, including one Peyton Manning at some point, but you're right, the division's really tough now. Even Washington's much improved, with the Gio Gonzalez, and I think Jason Worth will have a bounce-back year. The Braves are a good team. Phillies are banged up, we'll see what happens with them, but yeah, the Mets, look, the funny thing is that we always question the Mets pitching staff every single year going into the season, but they're always the ones that actually come around and, take care of business and do the job right. It's always our lineup. When you look at it, Beltran, Bay, Reyes, Wright in years past, we're like, okay, we should be scoring 7 runs a game, no problem. But that hasn't happened, and now you're going to go into this year saying, again, you know what, we don't have any pitching, we don't have any hitting, we don't have either or. I like John Neese. I remember we had conversations last year. I thought that he would be the best pitcher on our staff in the absence of Johan Santana. Mike Pelfrey's a wild card. You're deep into the Mets. I know you know them as good as anybody I know. So give me a little insight into the pitching staff this year outside of Johan.
Well, R.A. Dickey has been a very pleasant surprise since the Mets were able to, get him off the scrap heap basically a couple of years ago.
Sure.
And this is what I believe to be the second year of a 2-year deal he signed going into last year. So he is in a contract year essentially, and he's a guy that figured out the knuckleball later in his career and has been very effective, double-digit wins, and capability is absolutely something that the Mets expect, and I'm sure that he expects. And that is the area that the Mets really have some help on the way. They have a guy who they drafted out of college last year, Matt Harvey, who is expected to start the year at AAA, but is going to hopefully put the Mets in a situation where they have no choice but to bring him up to the major leagues, because he throws mid-90s and by everyone's accounts has got the temperament and has got the ability to get major league hitters out right now. But unlike previous regimes like Omar Minaya and others, this Mets regime under Sandy Alderson seems to not want to rush their prospects up to the major leagues as quickly, but Harvey is an example of a guy who could be pitching, at Citi Field in the summertime, or I would say by the latest next year. And then the Mets have, of course, Zach Wheeler, who they got from the Giants in the Beltran trade, who is much younger and much more raw. He'll probably pitch, I would say, at least a year and a half in the minor leagues more before he gets to call up. And then Juris Familia, who is the other pitcher that's often talked about on the Metfan websites and blogs and other places, as a guy who can come up and help the pitching staff, but he projects as more of a reliever. And the bullpen is where the Mets really went out and spent their money, their pennies at that this offseason by going out and picking up Frank Francisco and John Roush, and then trading for Ramon Ramirez in the Angel Pagan trade. That's the area of their team, their pitching staff specifically, that they seem to have shored up with veterans. So it'll be interesting to see if they could get themselves leads going into the 7th inning of games. They should be able to keep those leads, you would think, based on the additions that they made to the roster.
Yeah, you would hope so, because usually those leads are maybe by 1 or 2 runs, and they've been blown a lot. K-Rod had he had a good run for a while. He had ups and downs and everything, but he was lights out for a little while last year. But that's the thing; it's rough going into these 8th and 9th innings when you only have a 1 or 2 run lead or you're behind. The Mets just really, very rarely have an output of offense. I remember a few times last year when they went on the American League swing during interleague play, they were putting up like 12, 13 runs a game, and those things happen, but obviously it was more of a hoax than anything. And again, that's what bothers me. The Mets, we've always been buyers. We haven't always bought the right players, obviously, but at least they've gone out and tried. Even a guy like Jason Bay, who I thought was a great signing at the time. And, look, he's turned out to be anything but. So, look, it's a real issue for the Mets going forward. They're playing a tough division. But like you said, you never know what's going to happen. But they're clearly not the favorite to win that division or even go to the playoffs. There's a new playoff system now. They added a little wrinkle in with a 1-game playoff for the MLB expansion. I find it ridiculous, Matt. You play 162 games, and then you have a 1-game playoff with another team to see who goes actually on to the real playoffs. I find it ridiculous. I get what they're trying to do by, create more excitement and everything for teams that may be out of it. But we're talking, 15, 16 years ago, there were 4 less teams in the league, and only 4 teams overall made the playoffs. And now you got 5 in each league. It drives me crazy. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, at first, when I first heard about it, I was a little skeptical, I'll admit. But I'm willing to give it a try, so to speak.
Is this because you think the Mets have an outside chance of being that 5th spot?
Well, yeah, that always helps. Everything helps at this point. But the other side of me says that, the division championships used to be very, very important, and that is what baseball is trying to do by adding a playoff team, ironically, is to make the division races more important, because you make that playoffs as the wild card team, but you really don't want to be that second wild card team, because your trip can't get any tougher, because you have to win a game. Like you said, it's playing a 162-game season, and then you have to basically throw that out and then win a game to get the right to then play a series against a team that's going to have more rest than you, and is a team that is going to have a better record than you. So the road to the World Series becomes tougher as the wild card team than it would be if you were the division champion. So I understand that their approach, but it's a little confusing, number one, and then number two, it's definitely tinkering with the traditional model even more. And there are purists who follow the game who are very hesitant to make these kind of tinkerings. But I'm willing to give it a try, like I said.
Well, we really don't have a choice. I mean, we're going to have to try it. I personally don't like it because, like I said, you play 162 games, which is way too many already, in my opinion. You don't need that many games to figure out who the top few teams are in baseball, but that's another story for another day. Look, I really don't like it. To me, the division winner has already been devalued already. I mean, you even heard Brian Cashman come out and say, yeah, in 2010, we weren't even trying to win the division and stuff like that. I understand maybe that's their idea of maybe making the division winner now more important, but to me, it doesn't, because you're allowing more teams in. And we know that when you're hot at the end of the year, it almost goes for any sport. You look at the NFL, Giants just make it in. They get really hot at the end. Green Bay Packers last year. The Cardinals win the World Series as a wild card team last year. So it's like if you're hot at the end of the year and you got that momentum, bam, there you go. You get in. And it could be undeserving if, for example, let's say, I hate to say it, the New York Yankees win 102 baseball games this year. And I don't know, a team like, let's say, the Chicago White Sox sneaks in on that last week and they finish 81-81 with a 500 record. Do they really deserve to be there with the Yankees and even have a chance to go to the World Series? That's my point. It's undeserving to a certain extent. I mean, it's almost like they're headed down the NBA way and you might as well let half the league in. I just don't like it, Matt. I really don't.
And as a Mets fan, can I sign up for an 81-81 record right now? Where should I go?
Yeah, hey, that might get us in that 5th spot. I would love to take. I'd take that in a heartbeat. I wonder what the over/under is in Vegas right now. They probably have us at about 70 wins. Jeez, it's rough. It's rough.
Oh, that's okay. That's one of the things too. And I'm happy that you asked me to come on and talk about the Mets, because the Mets have to, and when I say by the Mets, I mean literally the players making up the 25-man roster that they're going to break camp with. They have to not be influenced or affected in any way by the negative perceptions of their chances by the outsiders, like who work for the networks and work for the newspapers and work for the websites and the people who talk about these things, because they have to listen to their very positive manager and basically take it from the standpoint that they do have the talent there to win games, whether others believe that or not.
All right. Hey, look, I love your optimistic attitude. You know that me and you have spoken the past. We talk about the Mets almost every single day of our lives, and I'm more of the pessimist. You're more of the optimist, and I love that. I try to feed off of that.
Sort of like Terry Collins.
Yeah. I like Terry Collins. I think he's the man for the job. It's just, unfortunately, he doesn't really have the right talent around him. We're not going to get into really, predictions right now of who's going to win the World Series. Me and my buddy Matt Schilling, a.k.a. The Law over here, we always make our preseason predictions with MVPs and who's going to win each division and stuff like that. So we're going to save that for a later date, but just looking forward a little bit. Teams like the Boston Red Sox with our former manager Bobby Valentine coming in, what do you think about them? You think they could turn it around? Do you find blame with Terry Francona? What are your thoughts real quick on these guys?
They're not the best team in that division. They're not the second best team. I think that they're going to be the third best team.
Wow, how about that? Wow, interesting.
And I love Bobby V as much as anybody.
Oh yeah.
But it's really a question of their roster. But then again, Bobby V took a Mets team to the World Series that had Timo Perez, Jay Payton, and Benny Agbayani.
Yeah, you got some outfield, huh?
Yeah, but I love Tampa's team, and you have to. I'll never use the word love and Yankees in the same sentence, but the Yankees have a tremendous team, a tremendous roster.
They really do.
They should be in contention. They should be a better team than Boston, if you ask me at this point.
I just don't love the Yankee pitching staff, though. I really don't. I trust CC Sabathia for sure. I mean, thank God they got A.J. Burnett out of there for those Yankee fans, but after that, I'm not sure. Phil Hughes, I like him, but is he a stud? I don't really know. Michael Pineda's a young kid, and they got a great deal. They gave away one of their big-time catchers, but he's a wild card to me also. I'm not sure about their pitching staff, and with an aging lineup and A-Rod and Jeter, I don't know, man. Teixeira doesn't hit until June comes around. If they don't get it, I know that they usually do make their run late and everything, but I'm afraid that if they don't get out to a fast enough start, your Tampa Bay Rays, who I really like, and even the Boston Red Sox may be able to take over them. I don't know if this is the Yankees' year. I actually disagree with you.
Well, maybe, I've seen LeBron with a Yankees hat on a couple times. Maybe he could take his talents to Bronx and need a start in September or something like that. I don't know.
I love it. Hey, so listen, before we wrap it up real quick, we got a fantasy draft coming up in a few weeks. You are the commish. I love that. You run a great league. I appreciate it. I aptly named my team the New York Mess. I'm hoping to change that at some point soon. But before we go, real quick, not that I want to give you a complete rundown, but on my website, I went ahead and I put up top 50 hitters and top 25 starting pitchers. What do you think right now? Give me just, who may be like your top 5, 6 fantasy studs out to watch for this year, and maybe throw in a wild card for me.
Well, I have to be very careful here because I can't give out.
This is true.
Castle.
Be careful. Use your intellectual lawyer abilities to speak discreetly here.
Sure. There are some people who are getting talked about. Excuse me.
God bless.
As having big years this year. I think people are really in love with that Prince Fielder Miguel Cabrera combination in the middle of the Tigers lineup.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they be, of course?
Sure.
But I'd like to personally, so much is determined by where you draft, because in a league like ours where there's 12 teams, where what's available to you at the beginning of the first round and versus the end of the first round is so different, usually, that you sort of have to just kind of figure out what's left at the end by the time your pick comes around in the first round, and then adjust from there.
Right. It's important to pay attention to the person in front and behind you, no question about it. See who they got. Well, let me ask you real quick, because we're running out of time, though, because I know you don't want to give away your secrets. But is there a secret to Mike Stanton changing his name to Giancarlo? How'd that happen? Because I thought there was a new great stud in the game. They're ranking fantasy players. What's going on?
What's going on? If you live in the Miami area as long as I have, you understand that anything is possible, especially in the sports world down here. So I don't have any explanation other than that as my gut reaction to that one right there.
Yeah, well, all right, because I just thought that there was a brand new player in the major leagues that I never heard of before, and they're projecting to have over 30 home runs. I'm like, geez, I better go pick that guy up real quick, wherever that is.
You know what happened to him today? He got hit by a pitch in the Marlins-Mets game on his right wrist.
Oh, there you go.
One or the other, I don't know.
I wonder if it was intentional. Could be some pre-spring training action, all right? Some brawls already. I wonder if Guillermo Mota and Mike Piazza were in the stands.
I'm glad we have Lucas Duda.
Yeah, me too. Yep, that's definitely a good guy to have on your side. All right, my man, we're going to wrap it up, but next time what I want to do is I want to have you, the Law, the Dog, Aaron Silverman, and the Chief, Ron Warner III, on all at the same time. We're going to do a little fantasy baseball segment, give our predictions for the year coming up in the next few days. So what do you say? You be able to come back and hang with me?
Yeah, we'll have to put aside a whole evening for that segment.
You know what? I think
you're gonna, oh boy, there's going to be a lot of opinions on that one.
Yes, there will, and no other opinion more important than mine. That's the reason. My man, Matty Shills, I really appreciate you hanging with me today, bud. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Anytime, man.
All right, my man. I love you. I'll talk to you later.
All right.